Hello and welcome to another To It For Media feature interview. I'm your host, Jhaka, and today I am joined by meteorologist with the Department of Disaster Management, Mr. Andrew Jackson, here to discuss hurricane maps, understanding the information that's coming out, and what the hurricane season is looking like so far for 2024. We have all that for you after this quick break.
There are many ways to enjoy life. Like so many ways to count on Popular.
Hi, my name is Judy, VI Motors Operations Assistant, and I'm here with Thing, our mechanic here, and we're going to show you today how you can locate your VIN number on a vehicle. Your vehicle's VIN, or Vehicle Identification Number, it's a unique code specific to your car. It's important for various purposes like registration, insurance, and maintenance. To find your VIN, start by looking at the dashboard on the driver's side. You can see it through the windshield near the bottom corner of the dashboard. It's usually a small metal plate or a sticker with a combination of 17 characters. If you can't find it there, other common locations include the driver's side door jamb, engine block, or it may be mentioned in your registration's documents. And that's how you find your vehicle's VIN number. Remember, this unique identifier is crucial for various services related to your car. It's a good idea to note it down or take a picture for future references. If you are having trouble locating it, please don't hesitate to ask a professional or refer to your owner's manual for guidance. Thank you for watching this quick guide on finding your vehicle's VIN. Stay tuned for more helpful tips to keep your car in top condition. Visit us at Dove's Bottom or at our Parts Point location in Virgin Gorda, or call us at 494-2496 or our website at www.vimotors.com.
Orange alert! Orange alert!
Fire is spreading across the BVI. The fastest, most reliable, and affordable fiber internet service is here for you. Look out for fire in these new locations: Slaney, Duff Bottom, Manual Reef, Seacows Bay, Albion, Hannah's, Palestina, Pleasant Valley, and Havers. Fiber is in your area. Call 444-4444 or visit a CCT store to find out more and bring it home. More locations coming soon.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. And of course, Mr. Jackson, with such a busy season going on, thank you for making time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me. Oh, it's been a busy season so far, right, Jhaka?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, as we sit in this interview, we're waiting to hear back on what are the effects that Hurricane Beryl has had on Jamaica.
That's correct, because as you would have seen, this storm is a very historic storm. Think about what we were saying earlier in our earlier interview, that this year would have been an unusual year and it was going to be active. And the first hurricane that we actually see this year is a Cat 5. And not only that, it's a Cat 5, it's the location of which this Cat 5 was formed and also the timing of the year. So this is one of the things that make this year so historic, and it gives us an idea that things we should be looking for as the season progresses.
Yeah, and could you just reiterate for us what are the driving factors of these superstorms we're seeing this year? I mean, people have been talking a lot about the ocean temperatures.
And you're so correct, as that was one of the main reasons why Beryl made it to a Cat 5 so quickly. The sea surface temperatures, the actual ocean content, that means from the surface down to it has a depth of heat. And because of that, every time when that wind churns up the water, it still has that fuel that it needs to build that storm. And also, you would have heard about the La Nina effect. And that effect has to basically do within the Atlantic basin, the wind shear, the vertical wind shear that would actually disturb the storms or fight against them building is actually pretty less. And that is why Beryl had no obstruction, so to speak, in rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 storm. And if you should realize currently now, closer to Jamaica, it's actually in some level of wind shear. The wind shear is actually a little greater at that side of the basin. So what is actually happening? It's forcing Beryl, it's kind of trapping Beryl somewhat from developing, and at the same time it's actually weakening it at the moment. So those are the two driving factors that actually is keeping Beryl from actually, well, not necessarily Beryl alone, but storms on a whole from how they will develop or not develop. And something to add, which I think is of great importance to this discussion, is actually the tracking. The tracking of storms this season has changed from last year somewhat. Last year we had 20 name systems and a lot of them curved out to sea. Now, if you noticed Beryl's tracking was tracking mostly towards the west. And that is because there's a high pressure system that is stronger this year in the Atlantic that wasn't so strong last year. So because it is that strong, it creates like a fence. So what a fence actually does, which we know, is creates a barrier. So that barrier is there, and a lot of these storms will be tracking through the Caribbean.
Now, that just adds another level of concern to what's going on right now. Now, you mentioned tracking. We do see the maps going all around, people trying to figure out where these storms are going to go. I know it could be a difficult process, so of course, I'm glad you're here to shed light. Could you just explain to us what we're supposed to take away when we see these maps other than just being panicked?
All right. The maps are not to scare, they are to inform. And based on what information you're able to get from these maps, then you'll be able to make informed decisions. Now, you might see a map that has what we call a forecast tracking cone. What that actually does, it gives you an estimation of where the eye of that system is expected to move. That's only an estimation. And the reason why it's a cone is because that cone gives you the margin of error. Now, forecasting is not an exact science or a perfect science, so there will always be some form of error. So if there was no error, the experts like myself could say, well, the storm will be here, there, and there at that particular point in time. So what should you really get out of a map like that? You will get an idea of where the storm will be at a particular point in time. So say, for example, you would see the time and the day, and you will see actually a map of the area that it is tracking into. So you would find where your location is, and then when you realize where your location is, you'll be able to say, well, hey, this storm is expected to be in my area, say, for example, Friday at 2 a.m. So you know you have a certain amount of time in order to, whatever it is that you need to do, you get it done. If you don't necessarily have anything else to do, you will just stay prepared until then. So it's not really something that you should be scared about. It's something that we should use for making informed decisions. And in our previous interview, I highlighted that we should not be worried. We should just be ready. And these are some of the tools that you will see from time to time that should help you be ready or stay ready, as the case may be.
All right. Now, of course, you mentioned that the cone tracks the eye of the storm, but of course, that doesn't mean that countries away from the eye aren't going to be affected.
And that is another misconception that we should always clarify. And let us be current. Let us use Beryl, for example. The eye of the storm is just a few miles wide. And if we should see what, for example, a satellite image of Beryl, we see a relatively big system. Why am I saying this? When you see the cone, you will only see where they're referring to the eye. But what I want you to also know is that outside of the eye, there exists the storm. And the cone doesn't necessarily show all of that. What it does is tell you where the eye is. So we should always bear in mind that even though the eye is tracking here, the storm exists around that, and that's something that we need to pay attention to. So from time to time, you would probably see they put up warnings and watches, and that is in relation to how close that particular storm effects will get to you. Probably be a tropical storm situation or
Yeah.
a hurricane situation. That will give you an idea of the level of impacts that you would also get. So pay attention to the tracking, yes, but also be mindful that the storm exists far beyond the eye.
And of course, the impacts of a hurricane exist far beyond the eye. I think earlier we were talking about the storm surge.
That is true. Because even for us in the BVI, we didn't get a direct impact from Beryl, but we did see sea conditions deteriorated a bit where we had high waves, significant wave heights of probably 8 feet. And this is because of the winds that are associated with Beryl that propagated these swells in the direction of the Virgin Islands. So even though it didn't affect us directly, so to speak, we still felt the effects of it.
And of course, the BVI is such a diverse community. So
Yes.
even though we think about the fact that Hurricane Beryl didn't come here, there are certainly members in the community who might still be searching for their family members in the islands that were most affected, worried about their homes in other islands. And of course, we do pray for them and, hope that they're able to find peace and able to find the resources they need to support their families right now.
And that is true. And also something that I don't want you to bash the experts, as I said before, it's not a perfect science, is the further out in time you go, the less accurate the information is. So, like I said, it's a guide to help you to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would like to add to that bit of
Let's
info there.
expand on that a bit because I do recall when the storm was still approaching Jamaica, there was this active discussion of whether or not it would approach it as a Category 5 or a Category 3. I think it landed Jamaica at a Category 4.
Right. And forecasting is such an interesting thing and a very difficult job because it all depends on the complexity of the event, the data that you have, and the time in which you have to analyze that data. So and say for example the Beryl the Beryl situation rather, you have these hurricane hunters have to go into this so you could get more accurate readings because they would be having those sensors on the plane that they could do whatever they need to do to get that information. And based on that, they would plug that now into a system that does some calculations, and then that will give an idea of where it is projected. So what you find might happen is that this, based on what the computer says to them at that point, with that information, it may show you a path, say heading towards Jamaica. That because up to last night, they had it at a category, probably 3 or 4, to impact Jamaica direct on the south central coast. But as we can see now with the latest update, has shifted south, and even though it's impacting Jamaica now, it's not directly passing over, and that will go back to the whole issue of margin of error. It could what the cone is actually showing is that at the tip of the cone, at the edge of the cone, the eye could be on that particular spot. It could be in between and could be on the edge. So that whole area of where you see the cone is, that's where the eye could be. So what I would say is this: look at your location, look at your situation, plan the worst case that could happen then. What if the storm ended up on the edge of the cone? What would you be doing then? So that is how we should think about it. And when we proactively think like that, we can be better prepared to handle situations.
Proactivity is certainly important. Actually, did want you to look a bit at expectations for the rest of the season, because considering Beryl came up so early and set records for a storm being so strong in June and July, the beginning of the hurricane season, a lot of people are concerned that that speaks volumes for what we can expect for the rest of the hurricane season.
Before I even go into answering that question, I would say climate change is a real thing. And that is going to be another factor that will be affecting forecasting, because the way things were 10 years ago and now have been slightly different. Just like how you mentioned, the whole sea surface temperatures being an issue. It will keep being an issue unless we, on a global scale, try to do something about it. But nonetheless, back to the question of expectation. Beryl is a good idea of what we could likely expect for the rest of the season, because we are still a good bit away from the peak. A storm like Beryl is usually in around September, October, thereabout. So, not to scare the public, but let us be informed that the possibility lies that there can be other hurricanes like Beryl, other hurricanes that could track closer to the territory. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a hurricane. It could be a tropical storm that tracks close to the territory, or even other territories. And the next thing is, the season was forecasted to have at least 20 to 23 named storms. We already have 3 of those. It's possible that the next 20 could be hurricanes. It's possible that the next 20 could be tropical storms. The possibilities are just what it is. And we should just be prepared for what is likely, which we already know that is going to be active. But even though it's going to be active, it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit more unusual from what we are used to. And that is what we have already seen with Beryl.
And of course, with looking at the difference between a hurricane and a tropical storm, because of course a hurricane is determined based off of wind speed, right?
That's correct.
Whereas a tropical storm could bring in a lot of rain, and that would still be an issue.
Right. So that's the thing again. We have to be, and this is why I appreciate interactions like these, because we get to inform the public of different things that we take for granted until they actually happen. Because let us even start with the floods that we've had in the last few weeks. They were systems, so to speak. There was just an area of disturbance, and that created some level of havoc in our territory. You might have a tropical depression. It just means that it doesn't have that, the wind speeds are not that high, but they do come with rainfall. What if there's a case where this tropical depression stalls over the BVI? That will cause a lot of flooding. So let us not think that none of them is important. Let us view them as with certain level of importance, that each of them could affect us differently. A hurricane might cause damage to infrastructure in terms of lifting off roofs, causing projectiles to fly all over the place. That in of itself can be catastrophic. But we should also be mindful that there are other events, just like the little disturbances, that could cause severe flooding. And with that, I would like for us to think on the level that let us not just be preparing for now. Let us hope we end up on the better side of the season. And with that being said, we could actually keep our preparations going for years to come. and not only plan for just say the hurricane season. Because think about also outside the hurricane season, there are other things that could happen. Further down this year, there might be a situation where these abnormal heat temperatures in the ocean cause coral bleaching, and that could affect other industries. And then when you have certain industries being affected, we'll have to have other persons coming in to deal with other things. So it's like a whole ripple effect.
Yeah.
So saying that to say this, we should be thinking holistically, how can we keep being prepared in a sense that we could evolve with climate change? We can't act the same way we used to act back then. Things have changed. And since things have changed, we have to change with it. You understand?
Okay, I think that's a very powerful note on which we could end today's interview. I, however, have to inform you that this is likely not the last time you will be visiting our studio throughout the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season.
Even beyond the Atlantic season, because like I said, we live not only in the season, but outside the season.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your time today, Mr. Jackson.
No problem. It's my pleasure being here.
And viewers, thank you so much for joining us for this featured interview. I'm Jhaka and I'm hoping you stay tuned to Tweet for Media for more great content.